other side that's not connected to my starting point at all is the opposite. Okay, so once you really understand the definition behind the names of the side, it's very easy to label the triangle correctly. However, where everyone always runs into problems is like, what formula do you use? I have my sine formula, my cosine formula, and the tangent formula. So how do I know what to use? That's what students always got stuck on. So I came up with this handy-dandy little solution, very high-tech. Question mark, check mark. Question mark, check mark. That's all you need to know when you're solving for a side. So write it down and then I'll tell you what it means. The question mark stands for, what is the name of the side that I'm looking for? Seda, what's the name of the side that I'm trying to find? Good. So that is my hypotenuse. And what is the name of the side that I know the value of? Wilma, what is the name of the side I know the value of? Yes, my adjacent. So I don't really need the opposite at all. I only need the name of the side I'm looking for and the name of the side that I know. So I want you to look at your notes. What is the only trig ratio that involves adjacent and hypotenuse? Yes, the cosine ratio. So the first thing that you always want to do, remember, this is good grammar in mathematics, meaning you have to state all your steps properly. If you follow the exact same process that I'm following, you'll have no problem for your test. So first you're going to state the formula. The cosine of my starting point is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse. Now before we continue, we're going to just double check one thing. There should only be one unknown in this entire formula. So my one unknown is my hypotenuse. That's the only thing that I don't know the value of. However, just to make sure that I've got the right formula, I should check that I know the value of my other two elements in the formula. So do I know the value of my angle x? Yes, it's 21 degrees, so I know that. Do I know my adjacent? Do I know my adjacent? Yes. Okay, so there's only one unknown. That means I can continue. So I'm going to fill in the information of the things that I know. So I know angle x is 21 degrees. I know my adjacent is 14. And I know my hypotenuse, well, I don't know my hypotenuse, but I know it stands for y. So the whole point of this is trying to figure out what is the value of my hypotenuse, what is the value of y. So this is what you're always going to do. We have a fraction on one side. We can kind of turn the left-hand side into a fraction too because it's a whole number. So I'm going to put it on top of an imaginary 1. So I have a fraction and a fraction separated by an equal sign. Never, ever, ever turn this into a decimal, okay? It's a trig ratio. We're going to keep it cos 21 degrees until the very end, all right? So whenever you have a fraction and a fraction separated by an equal sign, what is the process in algebra? What do we do? What does this stand for? Cross multiply. So we're going to cross multiply these terms. So, and I'm not going to change anything into decimals. I have y times cos 21 degrees is equal to 14 times 1, which is just 14. Now, whenever you're doing trigonometry, you have to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. You have to make sure your calculator is in degree mode. If you look at the mode button on your calculator, if it's not in degree mode, you're not going to get the right answer. So you have to switch it. If you're finding you're getting the wrong answer in your textbook, that should be the first thing that you switch, okay? I'm trying to isolate my y. I'm trying to solve for y. However, I have this pesky little cos 21 degrees attached to the y. So how do I get rid of the cos 21 degrees? How do I get rid of it, Raven? Good. We're going to divide not just the left-hand side, but both sides of the equation by cos 21. Notice these are the exact same rules that we use in algebra. We're just applying it to trigonometry. So what happens is this cos 21 cancels with this cos 21. So I have y is equal to 14 divided by cos 21. And if you have your calculator with you, you can just plug those values into your calculator, and you should get y is equal to 15. Double check that that's correct. Y should be equal to 15. Cos 14 divided by cos 21. Yep, okay, great. So very, very simple. Whenever you're solving for a side, it's going to be just as simple, but you have to make sure that you're following all the steps. When you're doing your test, notice how much the test is worth out of. You should get 1, 2, 3, 4 marks. If it's worth 4 marks, you know you need to have 4 steps involved, okay? So really pay attention to that. Let's do one more example of solving for a side, and then we can move on to solving for an angle. Okay, so we have to solve for side A. This is going to be my big angle A, B, C. So because we're solving for a side again, we're using the same method, question marks, check mark. But before we can get to that, someone that needs to tell me what is my starting point for this particular question. What is my starting point? Diana? Yes. Angle A is my starting point. And now I have to label my other two sides. This is small side A. That's what I'm trying to solve for. But what is the name of small side A? Can someone tell me? The opposite, yes. It's not touching my starting point at all, so that means it's my opposite. The side that is touching my starting point, we discussed already, that's called my adjacent. Okay, so what are the two, and that means that leaves my hypotenuse. So what are my question mark, check mark sides that are going to help me figure out what trig ratio to use? What is question mark, check mark? What is the name of the side that I'm looking for? Raven? The opposite. And what is the name of the side that I know the value of? Adjacent. Good. So the only trig ratio that involves opposite and adjacent is the tangent ratio. So we have tan A is equal to opposite over adjacent. Just to double check this is the right formula, I know that my opposite is the side I'm looking for. I know the value of my adjacent. Do I know the value of angle A? Yes, I know the value of that. So I'm going to plug in all the information. Tan 36 is equal to opposite over adjacent, A over 26. Remember, the tan 36 is like a whole number, so you're going to put it on top of an imaginary 1. Do not change anything into decimal. We just have to make sure that your calculator is in the degree mode. What's the next step that I have to do to solve this question? What's my next step? Cross multiply. So this is a little bit easier to solve because A times 1 is simply A is going to be equal to 26 times tan 36. I don't have to divide by anything, just coincidentally, my A has already been isolated. So that means all you have to plug into your calculator is tan 36, there's a tan button, times 26, and you should get an answer of 18.9. Try to keep your final answer with one decimal place if you have multiple decimal places. Keep one decimal place in your answer. the one type of problem that you have to know for Unit 14. There's one more type of problem,